Buddy, this is Married to Health and all of our wonderful dietitians. We are back for another dietitian talk. Today's topic is health is wealth. It's the idea of the economy and your health and how that fits in. Everyone's talking about the economy, crypto, stock markets. I mean, that's all I see when I put on my YouTube or like news and all that stuff. So we want to kind of refocus. If everyone's freaking out or you're feeling the stress, we kind of want to refocus it back to health. That's what we're good at. That's what we're all about, is food and health, integrative nutrition. And so I am James Marin, integrative registered dietitian, environmental nutritionist.
I'm Deli Marin, registered dietitian nutritionist.
And we are joined with...
We have two of our amazing dietitians. We'll have, Katie, go ahead.
Katie, go for
I'm
it.
Katie Chacos Rodriguez. I'm a licensed dietitian nutritionist.
And I'm Joseph Bartoloni, registered dietitian in California.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, we see patients all over the world. We are nationwide in terms of our dietitians. We have Katie, who's like on the East Coast, and we're on the West Coast. So it's really cool what technology can do. So we're excited to be here. And we are here pretty much every Friday now in July. There's some form of content that you can find on Married to Health, whether that you're watching us through Facebook or YouTube or Twitch. We're on Twitch, guys. We're so cool. So even if you're watching us on Twitch, and we'd love to hear from you, comment below. But today's topic that we're going to try to stick with, even though we can see your live comments. So if you want to comment something nice or a question, we'd love to see it and read it. But today is health is wealth. We're going to be talking about, maybe you're struggling financially. How does that affect your health? Maybe you're kind of this notion that, I can't afford these things. I can't afford to see a dietitian or a therapist, or you insert the healthcare provider. And so we kind of want to just refocus that, reframe that a little bit, because we do hear this quite often. And depending who we're talking to, or we do hear, at least what I see, the perspective of success and wealth and assets, right? An asset meaning something that can do work and build wealth and bring prosperity. But what I would pose the question, I want to get everyone's opinion, is like, your body and your health is one of, if not the biggest asset, meaning you could have all the stocks in the world and all the crypto or whatever, all the homes. But if you're not healthy, what does that mean, right? For me, I would say your health is your biggest asset, because from that you can do so much in terms of building wealth, or going to buy a home, or building your own home, or building other assets with your health. So what do you guys think about that? Any thoughts on that? Or how does that connect, Katie or Joseph, to your patients? Or, do you guys agree with my statement there?
Yeah, I think I can go ahead and get started. I think one of the most important things when it comes to this topic of health and wealth is a lot of our conversation may be around individual choices, but there's so many other social determinants of our health that as an individual, we don't have control over. So the CDC shows that 1 in 10 people don't have access to health insurance, and 1 in 10 are living within the poverty line. And for those that are in a minority population, that statistic is even higher. So they're higher than the national standard. And so with that, I think it's a really important lens that things like environmental safety. Are you safe when you're walking around to get physical activity? Do you have access to a grocery store that you can buy fresh produce or any produce at all? All of that's really important when we're having this conversation of what can we do to improve our health, when we have so many things that are also affecting what individual choices we actually have as a person.
Totally.
I love that you bring that up, Katie, because it's so important, because yes, we do know that we have really great return on investment with what we invest into our physical health, but what each person can invest can vary, right? If you're not living in a community that's safe to walk through, and you don't have access to a gym, what is exercise going to look like for you? If you are living in a food desert, how can you access fresh produce and incorporate that into your diet? So these are absolutely things that have to be considered, have to be talked about, and have to be incorporated. So that way it's not just focusing on those things, but saying, okay, these are things that may be determinants of health. What can we be empowered with? What can we focus on? What are some small tweaks in our lifestyle that we can make to do the best that we can with the assets and the resources that we do have to invest?
Yeah. And it's important. I mean, food swamps, you talked about food deserts, and there's food swamps where it's just this saturation of just questionable food like substances, let's say, in certain areas. And we see that, there's not a Whole Food. There wasn't a Whole Foods where I grew up as a young child. Like, I grew up in a pretty bad area. And it's funny, when I came to Orange County, it's like, oh, there's a Whole Foods. And what is this? And I remember being at a young age and going to a Trader Joe's and thinking how weird it was. Like, I was like, what is this place? Like, I was in a different area and going to a Trader Joe's, and I thought it was so fancy and so weird and odd because I'd never seen that. And it's these perspective shifts. And Katie, I love how you just really broadened it to, health. We just think of the physical, or we think of food, but it's society, right? It's social, it's economical, it's mental, right? It just has so many facets to it. And it's not just like, oh, I can get healthy food, I'm automatically healthy. It's like, no, can you walk? Can you feel stable and feel safe mentally and physically? And just, I mean, it can keep going from there. So we see health in all these facets. So it's so important to kind of assess, like, where am I, and what can I do, and how is this affecting me? And then kind of going from there. So very cool.
Joseph, would love to hear your thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, James brought up, right, mental health. So I'd like to touch on that side a little bit. Kind of what I've seen working at an eating disorder treatment during the pandemic, right? I feel like last year or the year before that, we kind of went through the quarantine and everything, and that affected people different ways. And what I saw as far as like health being an asset is the people that were further along in their recovery, that were in treatment for longer, they reacted to the quarantine as a positive. They started getting a lot better, a lot faster. On the other side, people who weren't, unfortunately, they weren't in treatment that long when the quarantines happened. They weren't able to deal with the situation as well. So they struggled with all of the daily life activities, like preparing meals, right? Like balancing their meals, all these things. And yeah, like I mentioned, it was kind of like pretty extreme the way both, the way each population acted, right? The people who've been there for a long time and who their health were kind of in a good spot, their mental health, right? When the quarantine happened, it was kind of like, oh, there's an opportunity. Like, now I don't have all these outside factors. I'm just going to focus on my mental health. And they kind of skyrocketed. And then the other people who, unfortunately, they didn't have that base set up yet. And when the quarantine hit, the way they reacted to it was very difficult for them, and they kind of declined. So, what you were saying, like, there's no better time than now to get started, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, right? For someone who might have started like working on their health a year ago from today, right? Like what's going on right now with the financial situation, they might be in a way better spot to react to that than in the past.
And I see this because I love, the spectrum we're touching on, and that's something, it's so broad. And we're when you say people, or when you just even say California, the spectrum of people, and when you say the United States, the spectrum of people, there's so much with different, whether it's health issues, socioeconomic backgrounds, the spectrum is wide. And so what I kind of want to refocus on and get your guys' take, as well as just kind of the starting point, like, what does this mean tangibly, and what is this research in action? What are these action? And really, it's like being aware and being conscious of, someone on one side of the spectrum going like, how am I breathing? Like, if I'm just doing those shallow, like the sympathetic
Stress.
nervous system stress breathing of like the little like almost hyperventilating is like, how much would it cost me to just start deep breathing, right? Even if you are in a polluted area, let's say maybe the air quality isn't great. I mean, it's better than doing shallow breathing and poor air quality. It's like there's so many factors here, but even just deep breathing, or if you do have a front yard or backyard, or if there is a time of day. So I'm thinking of a very extreme situation, right? If there's a time of day, you can go to a local park and just do some deep breathing. How much would that cost you? And then what would that be doing for you? What is that kind of, some may see it as a big step, some can see it as a very small step. And then kind of going along that spectrum and going, what can you do from there? So it can be as simple as like assessing your breathing. And for some that could seem very simple and be like, who doesn't do that? Who doesn't do that? But we're all talking about different perspectives here. And it can be on the other end of like hiring a personal trainer and going to the gym and that side of the spectrum, right? So what have you guys seen, whether it's from patients or just your opinion or even in research, of like these first steps that are like oh, wow, this little thing really went pretty far and that was pretty cool? Nice.
I think one thing that I've been talking with my patients a lot this week about is, what does your inner voice sound like when you're preparing your meals and eating your meals? Is it one of love and abundance and respect, self-respect, self-love, self-care? Is it one of distraction where you're not even focused on the fact that you are about to eat or even eating, where you have kind of that, I like to call it movie theater syndrome of like, who ate all the popcorn, right? Are you not even realizing that you did eat? And then later on, you're like, did I eat? Am I hungry? Should I eat again? Are you so distracted with your inner voice that you're focused on work and focused on other things? Or is it a negative voice? Are you having that negative internal dialogue when you're prepping your meals and eating your meals? Are you eating your meals in such a stressed state that you're, one, probably not going to digest that food as well? You're not going to enjoy that food as much. You might not absorb as much nutrition from that meal. So I think, to me, that's also something that can create such abundance and create such a change in one's health, with being focused on what we're starting up here and recognizing where you can take that.
Yeah, Dahlia, I think, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally, definitely agree with you, Dahlia. And on what like James was touching on, things that are free, right? Like just sitting down and eating intuitively, or practicing mindful eating, right? Like that's something that you could do with no matter where you're at, no matter what you're eating. Even if you still know, maybe you can work on like balancing a little better or changing what you eat. You don't have to do those if you're not ready to do those yet. You can just take a few moments, kind of like pay attention to be aware of those thoughts that are going on while you're eating, kind of trying to slow down and then just get in that rest and digest state while you're eating. And, that could be very beneficial for health for free, right?
What can that look like for somebody, Joseph? Because I think this term is used, right? Mindful eating. What can that look like for somebody? Maybe if they're used to being distracted during their meal and they're used to being really stressed during their meal, how can they incorporate mindfulness during their mealtime? What are some strategies that you recommend?
Yeah, so a few simple tips. Something that we always do at the treatment center I work at is before and after meals, we check in with an emotion and a hunger cue. So basically, how do you feel right now? Am I tired? Am I happy? Am I sad? Right? Just being aware of that, separate from the food. Like, what state am I in now? And then the hunger cue, like, am I very hungry right now? Am I starving? Am I a little hungry? Am I full? Right? And if I'm full, like, you know, is there something off where this is a normal time I eat every day, but I'm full before I eat this, maybe something else changed in my daily life. So that's one easy thing to do. Same thing with after. check in with an emotion, hunger cue, just kind of see where you're at, see, hey, you know what? I'm a little more full at this meal. Maybe I ate more than I wanted to, or maybe I ate more like past satiety, right? That's one simple thing. Another thing is just if you're eating with a fork or utensils, taking a bite and then simply setting the utensils down while you chew your food and just pay attention to the texture, what the food tastes like. But yeah, just those are a few simple tips that anyone could practice.
And that are so important, right? Because I think we get so distracted, our monkey mind is always going towards other things. And so it's saying, oh, how can I engage all these senses of these red raspberries? I'm observing that with my eyes, feel so plump and they taste so sweet and they feel so juicy. So it's also, taking that time and taking that beat to say, how can I engage with this meal right now? So I love that. We talked about mindful mind, mindful eating. Katie, what are some of your takeaways or some of your tips that you like to give?
Yeah, I think, Jali, kind of like what you had mentioned is to stay present with meals, really like going through a bit of a checklist to say, okay, what's the texture I'm feeling? Is it crunchy? Is it soft? Is it squishy? Is it gelatinous? What's the taste am I sensing? Is it salty, sweet, umami, and kind of going through those things? What's the temperature? Is it really hot? Is it too cold for my mouth? Is it lukewarm? Kind of all of those things help you stay present and kind of push out the distractions. The other thing I like more generally, if I can open it up a little bit, is when we're talking about this like health is wealth. And James, you had mentioned, like, what's the action that we can take going forward? I really like to just like sit and reevaluate, say, what are my values? What are the goals? Who's the person I want to become? But then backtrack. What is the smallest step I can take to start moving towards that? I think in our last live, we had talked about small actionable goals to help achieve a bigger picture. And that comes into play within everything that we do, especially our health. So it could be going for a walk if you live in a safe environment, or researching a food pantry, or talking to your community if you're looking to get more produce in some of those areas. So that's just a little bit to bring it a little bit more broadly. Those are things that I like to focus on too.
Yeah. The small steps and working backwards, like having that master plan and taking the time. I mean, that's a step, right? Is like just evaluating and coming up with that goal. And that's step one. And then step two is like, okay, how do I get here? And finding those resources and getting these tips and then putting it together in what you want, but really having that focus, because you really can't get to a destination if you don't have the destination, right? It's kind of like, what do I want? And I think so many start out with like, I want to lose weight and I want to look a certain way. And that's great. But, I think it can go pretty deep and much deeper, and you find things out like, my blood sugar's higher. Oh, this constipation I've had off and on for 20 years is related to this. And I was abused and that's related to that. And it goes so deep and there's so much there. But ultimately refocusing on this topic is really saying, if you do focus on your health, it can do wondrous things for so many aspects of your life. And it can really set you up, like really give you that foundation of this investment to continue to build other things in your life, including your wealth, including other aspects of your life that you never knew were possible. So it's really cool. And even diving into like a career, so many times our patients and people we come in contact with, like, you guys have inspired us to like do something in the healthcare field. Like, I want to be a dietitian, or I want to be a nutritionist of some sort, or I'm going to start my own cafe and business because this has moved my life so tremendously. And now let me start like a whole new direction in life and like a business venture. It's so crazy how it's connected to all these different facets of life. But yeah, so that's really cool. It can all start from like this tiny little seed, which is so amazing.
It can.
And cool.
And I think it's, kind of what you were saying, James, of reflecting on Why do you want that health outcome? Whether that is to, our daughter will say things like, I'm going to live to 121 years old. I love that. I love that goal. Do it. And why do you want that? What will it look like to help you get there? What assets do you have? How can you, what investments do you need to make? It's almost like making a financial goal, right? Of saying, I want to have $1 million. Why do you want to have $1 million? How hard will you work to have $1 million? What are you going to sacrifice to have that $1 million? What will you do with the $1 million once you get there? It really is kind of just asking yourself, what is at my disposal for me to get to that goal, and what is in my way of getting to that goal as well? Or is my goal realistic with what assets I have and what current inputs that I have to put into that goal? Should I kind of reassess my goal and say, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to make $1 million because I don't know what I'd even do with them. Or, maybe I don't want to lose 60 pounds because I don't know that I'll be any happier 60 pounds less than I am now, or whatever it is. But it really is asking yourself, kind of like amassing wealth, right? It's, why do you want to do that? What are you going to do with it once you have it? What is it going to mean to you? And how are you going to feel once you get there? And, how will you feel, and what will it mean to you if you don't get there? And how are you going to use that as a motivator?
And I want to pose this really quickly, like just to reframe. I mean, it doesn't have to be, because I think in this topic, especially, people just think of like wads of cash of like, what am I investing in? And I have to have this money or this resource, but really it's your time, right? It's your focus. It's just you. Like every day we are investing. You make a decision on what to eat, right? You're going to the drive-through, and you can make healthy choices depending on which drive-through. I don't want to like put down all drive-throughs, but like, for the most part, we associate a drive-through with like a negative connotation. But like, you can go through a drive-through and get a salad, yes, but I think the data is pretty clear. Most people going through a drive-through is getting like a highly refined and saturated, fat laden, and there's trans fats, and we're just getting an overabundance of calories and energy and fat, and especially in the United States. And so that's an investment, right? You're setting that focus, you're putting that time, you're spending that money, and then you're consuming that, and that is an investment. So what are you doing most often? It's going back to that assessment. What are you doing in your everyday? And these are investments, right? Is that food an asset to you and your body? Is that food going to facilitate you to be your best in terms of clarity of the mind and clarity of your actions and everything? Because we know, I mean, this nutrition has a clarifying aspect to our body. It can really replenish and help to build, or there's foods that can, create a cascade of inflammation starting in the gut microbiome and then moving from there. So I want to put the focus on it. You don't have to have like all these resources or all these, financial assets. And when we're talking about health and wealth, it's really just like your time, your focus, your energy, what you're doing every day. These little things add up. So yeah, it's important to kind of just put that into perspective. And I think what we're challenging any of you watching is really just to add these things up and to really reflect on these things and to really look at, what am I doing every day, whether it's 50 cents or $50 or $5,000, what are you spending that on? What are you using every day? And yeah, great comment here. Definitely important to utilize the resources that you have access to. And again, it doesn't matter, because we all have resources. That's the thing. You can be on one end of the spectrum. It's been hard, it's been rough, and you're struggling. You still have resources. You're breathing, you're alive, you still have resources. And obviously the other end of the spectrum, which it's funny, I mean, we see patients, and we've dealt with patients from both, right? We've seen really wealthy people struggling with their health. We've seen really, people who are underserved and on the other end of the socioeconomic spectrum who are struggling with their health. Why is that? Doesn't all the money in the world solve all your problems? Like, why would both people on the ends of these spectrums be struggling with their health? And it's kind of going back to what we're talking about here, right? These little things matter. But any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, what the theme that just keeps coming up to me, and what I tell all my patients is the first step is awareness. Just being aware is the first step to making a change. You're not able to change something that you want to change if you're not aware of it.
Right.
Whether that be with, practicing mindful eating, paying attention to the food choices you make, paying attention to what you do every day, paying attention to where you're at financially, and if that's where you want to be, or if you're happy where you are, and if you want to change that. All these things are, not really possible to address if you're not aware of them. So a lot of times I will get patients that will overwhelm themselves with like, hey, what do I do now? What can I do to take action now? And a lot of times it's just pulling back and being like, hey, awareness is the first step. Like, let's see where you're at right now. Um, let's be aware of what's going on, what all the things you do daily, and then we could ask those questions like, is this something I want to change? Why do I want to change it? And then I think that's kind of like just the first step. And yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, I think
Katie, do you have any other mementos to add, or any other? I love the statistics you brought up, and so we'd love to hear if you have any additional comments to add.
Yeah, I think kind of going off of what Joseph said, where like the first step is awareness, I think the second step is honesty, and being honest with yourself, and being honest with what you can and cannot control, because there are things that we cannot control in our life, whether it's certain policies set in place, certain rulings, things like that, where we don't have current control. But what can we do? What are things that we can do as an individual, things that we can do for our communities and for our regions and our areas? Are there people and organizations that we can join, or that we can pull resources from, that we can then create these goals and these objectives for ourselves?
Love that. Very timely. And I think it's encouraging people to be honest and ask yourself, like, how am I using my energy? Is it to build up and, like you said, join those who are like-minded and have similar goals? Am I using my energy to tear others down? Is that conducive to my best health? Is that a good investment to my best health? And really asking yourself that, and having that honest feedback, and that time to have that honest talk and chat with yourself.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, everyone watching, and if you're watching this later, not live, if Married to Health can be a resource for you, if you want to learn more about Joseph and Katie, Dahlia, and Vicky, who couldn't join us today, but our other dietitian, feel free to go to marriedtohealth.com, click the link below, and shoot us a comment if you want to see another topic for us to talk about or discuss. If you're curious about, have questions. And yeah, we love kind of having this dietitian talk. We love giving the perspective, health and nutrition and dietetic lens and focus and perspective to things. And so you can find us here again the first Friday of every month. And throughout the month, you'll also find our Good Gut Live, and then some cool vlogs that are coming to the YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. And thank you all. Thank you, Katie and Joseph. I think this was a great way to kind of carry out the week. You know, it is Friday, so everyone enjoy the holiday weekend, and hopefully everyone is finding and looking inward, collecting their resources, and ready to make some great little steps or big steps, whatever you can do, whatever is kind of speaking to that truth inside of you, and getting ready to have a healthy weekend. So thank you all so much. And thank you for watching. We'll talk to you all very soon. And as always, remember to heal with each meal. All right. Bye, everybody.